properly according to the words of our sages, but preparation we need. So everyone is familiar usually with what we'll read on Shavuot. We'll read from the Torah, the Ten Commandments, but before that, in chapter 19, it says in the third month since they left Egypt, they arrived at the wilderness of Sinai, they journeyed from Rephidim, arrived at the wilderness of Sinai, camped in the wilderness, and then it says in Israel encamped there opposite the mountain. Vayichan Sham Yisrael Neged Ahar. The rabbis point out, Rashi brings, that Vayichan Sham is in the singular tense. Rashi writes, as one man with one heart. It became unified, as opposed to the previous encampments. Rashi continues, they were with complaints and argumentation, because then it was in the plural. Vayis'u, Vayavo, they came, they encamped, they, and here it says Vayichan. He, Israel, encamped there, under the mountain. And as you'll see in source number 12, on the sheet, on the third sheet, you see, you have the Orach Chaim HaKadosh, right? That's number 14. See number 14? The Orach Chaim HaKadosh on that verse, where it's underlined, Vayichan Sham Yisrael, Lashon Yachid. Again, they encamped in the singular tense. Shenasu kulam yachad kish echad. They became like one man, one person, one entity. They were totally united. Vehen ata im ruyim l'kabbalat Torah. Now they are worthy to receive the Torah. The preparation, in order to receive the Torah, we had to be unified. Up till then they couldn't receive it. They were broken, they were fractured. Now they became unified. Oh, now they can receive the Torah. The question is, why is that so important? Why is that so significant? Why can't the Jews receive the Torah? Each one, every person received it. Actually, the rabbis say in the Midrash that if one person was missing at Sinai, he says one maidservant was missing even, the Torah couldn't have been given. What do you mean? There's other 600,000 men, more than that even, that was just the males. Hundreds of thousands. Give each one the Torah, receive the Torah, get the mitzvot, know what your obligations are. If one person was missing, we couldn't receive it. Or here they had to be unified to receive it. So that's a deep topic, understanding what the Torah is, what Am Yisrael is. As you see, the first source on the sheet, Rabbi Levi Yitzchak Mibraditchev brings the name of the Baal Shem Tov, who was also his yortzeit is on Shavuot, the Baal Shem Tov. Mai melacha shel Torah. It's going on the Pirkei Avot. You can see it there. It says, "Kol Torah she'eini ma melacha." So far, all Torah that doesn't have melacha, which is, what does that mean? It doesn't have work, is ultimately will not last. So far, will be cancelled. In other words, Torah that doesn't have work with it, some effort with it, will not last. So on that, the name of the Baal Shem Tov says, "Maya melacha shel Torah." What's this work that has to be accompany the Torah to make it last? Love your neighbor as yourself. Rabbi Akiva says, right, that's a big rule in the Torah, to love your neighbor as yourself. That's the work of Torah. He says, as you know, that's the mitzvah that the beginning of the Sidurim, before we pray in the morning, it says that's the mitzvah, you should get the name of the Arizal. This is the mitzvah, I accept upon myself this commandment before I start praying, that v'aftarecha kamocha. He said that you will have to see why, understand how this is our entrance also to prayer. Our whole connection to Torah, to prayer, is through that, for the loving your neighbor as yourself. And then the Baal Shem Tov goes on, lo havastam, not stam, platonic love or some abstract, ela malacha v'tamtzut v'ahavat Yisrael, but rather a great work, an effort in loving the other people, the other Jews. Also, Rav Kook and Orot, I don't have it here. He says also, the love of Israel is a great study. It's not, you can think, it's easy to love, I love, but then the problem is if it's not the depth of what is Am Yisrael, what is there to love. You can only love maybe those that are very close to you in your yeshiva, your friends, and you're alike, you're limited to those who agree with you. But to love all of Israel, that takes a lot of study of what, indeed, that inner essence, the content of the positivity, in other words, what's there to love in every Jew. But that takes a lot of study. because it's not so much on the surface. And that's why I wanted a little bit to see here what that content is, what's there to love. But the truth is, this condition for receiving the Torah was not just once. And then to receive the Torah at Sinai in the year 2448, we had to have this unity. But rather, the Torah is set up such that it cannot be fulfilled. It cannot be fulfilled without this whole receptacle called the nation of Israel. That's the receptacle of Torah. The Torah is not individual guidance. It's the neshama of Am Yisrael, our spiritual map of the soul of Am Yisrael, this collective soul of Jewish people, which then comes down as branches off each one of us. We're a unique branch, expression of that collective soul. Each one has a unique contribution. But the Torah is addressed to, first and foremost, the nation of Israel. That's why the Maharal writes in Tiferet Yisrael, a book about receiving the Torah, and it's the significance of Torah, the Maharal of Prague, in chapters 17 and 21. He asks, why wasn't the Torah given to the fathers, Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov? Again, very righteous people. Give them the Torah, command them, and show them the way of God in this world. But he says the Torah was not given to individuals, as holy as they may be. The Torah was given to the nation of Israel as a nation. That's the unit that receives Torah. It's not a private affair. The Torah is this neshama, the collective. It's not just laws of external laws that you're supposed to follow. Look at the list, and anyone can read it and do it, and every individual. So what does it mean if one Jew is missing? No, the receptacle, that which receives this divine infinite content, is also this infinite essence. In other words, to receive the divine, the infinite, this eternal content needs a parallel receptacle. Individuals are not eternal, and not how do you say, they're mortal, they're finite. That's why the Maharal writes in another place in Breshit that God does not dwell His name on the individual, because the individual is not the particle, the same wavelength. To receive the infinite, it requires also this eternal, infinite vehicle. That is the soul of Am Yisrael, the collective, inner, divine essence. The rabbis call Knesset Yisrael, the Shekhinah. That is the soul of the nation of Israel. That's where the Torah is. It's not just a book of guidance of laws, like an external that anyone can read it and do. One person, two people. Give it to each one to follow these laws. But this is the inner essence. It's a divinely created essence that's revealed and received, expressed through a nation, and then through every individual that's on the virtue of the fact that he's part of that nation, therefore he's also obligated. That's why it says before the Ten Commandments, you'll be unto me
Goy Kadosh,
a kingdom of priests and Goy Kadosh, a holy nation. Holy nation. And that's a lot to talk about. We talk about throughout the year, but let's get more to this topic because it's limited time of this loving of Israel. So if you see source number 7, like I said, it's not just a condition, a one-time condition for receiving the Torah, but also throughout history. In other words, it's built such that it cannot be fulfilled. It's the law, it's the map of a nation. And therefore the Meshech Chochmah, who wrote the commentary, the Meshech Chochmah on the Torah?
Let's see.
No, Rav Meir Simcha Vinsk, the author of the Or Sameach on the Rambam. He's famous, known as the Or Sameach. But he also wrote an unbelievable, amazing commentary on the Torah called the Meshech Chochmah. And here he says, on the verse that we read here, the receiving of the Torah, that the Jews accepted the Torah, Yachdav, they all said it in one, unison, Naseh. He says, Hinei mitzvot Torah yesh asher lekohanim. There are mitzvot that apply to, that obligate the Kohanim. There's mitzvot for the Leviim. There's mitzvot for the high priest. There's mitzvot for the king, mitzvot for the Sanhedrin. Yesh lemishi yesh lo karka, the people that have commandments for those who have a house and property. Rak beklal Yisrael tzicha Torah litkeim. Only in the nation of Israel the Torah can be kept. That's how it's built. It's not just a one-time condition. And we'll see the receptacle, what I already preempted, so to speak, explaining that this is the vehicle that receives the Torah is not just individuals, the holy individuals, like the Maharal says. The Torah wasn't given to holy individuals, even the Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. The vehicle that can receive it, that it's not just receive it technically, externally. He that is built with that inner content of the Torah, as the neshama, ki hem chayenu v'orech yameinu, that's our life source, that's the nation. And then therefore, that even the mitzvot are built such that there's no one person that can keep all the Torah. he says only the nation of Israel can be fulfilled. The Kol Yisraelim Arivim b'zeh. They're all united. They're all each one responsible for the other. Maybe we'll talk about that. Shekol ha'umah Yisraelit v'adam echad. Like the whole nation is like one person. It's like one receiving of the Torah is as into one. The nation of Israel as one. Not each one Shlomo, Yitzchak, and Rivka, and Leah, but the nation as it's like one unit. There are some people that like the heart, some people like the head, some people like the eye. Each one has a unique contribution, and each expression, and each way he reveals and expresses, like each function in that symphony orchestra. But it's one orchestra, it's one entity. The nation of Israel, she, whatever, in Hebrew, is that which receives the Torah. And everyone has to fulfill the mitzvot that depends on him, and together, like the whole music of all the instruments playing together as one. Shebechalut ha'am, but as the nation is one, they are like one person, one unit. And they all said, Devar Hashem, they all said together, Naaseh. The Al-Shich HaKadosh, also one of the 5 that are called the Kadosh, we mentioned that throughout the classes, right? There's 5 in Jewish history that are known as the Kadosh. A lot of holy people, holy rabbis, but they're like part of their name, like in the Jewish history, they're like Jewish people attribute to them this epithet, this title of holy. We mentioned the Or HaChaim HaKadosh. Now there's the Al-Shich HaKadosh. Again, there's holy people that you'll hear a lot of, but the famous, let's say 5. What? No others?
Is Ariya Kadosh one?
Ariya Kadosh. Also in Tzfat. The Al-Shich HaKadosh was in Tzfat with the Arizal. The Arizal used to come. This is the Beit Yosef, and the Arizal used to come to hear the lectures of Shabbat. And they had the Beit Knesset of the Al-Shich in Tzfat. The other 2, who wrote the Mishnah? Rabbeinu HaKadosh and Shlach Kadosh. Okay, but what is I don't know if you can read it. It's small print here in the Rashi. I'll just read it to you in English, maybe quickly. I can read it either. It's also some simple. I read it now. Without my glasses, it's easier. This is the Yalshich on Devarim, chapter 23. Av echad lekulan. We have one father. We all have one father. We're all children of one father. Goy echad ba'aretz. One nation in the land. We've spoken about, right? When is the unity of Am Yisrael expressed and revealed? Only when the Jewish people of the land of Israel. Then they're this unified entity. The neshama comes down, like it says in Yeshayahu 42. Notei neshama la'amal. I give the neshama to this nation upon the land. This is where we are one. Where that oneness comes down, and one soul, the unifying soul, is revealed through all the branches. When the Jews are outside the land, as if the soul is in the heavenly abode that has no earthly receptacle, the scattered bones and limbs, like the Cheskel 37, the dry bones scattered. Jews, religious Jews, holy Jews, but the nation, Goy Echad Ba'aret, as the rabbis say in the Zohar. Kol Ish Yisrael Choter Gub. All of the Jews are like branches of this Geza, of this trunk, that of the holiness above, underneath the wings of the Shekhinah. And all the souls are to him. They are like Chashuvot Ke'echad. They're all like one. All the Jewish people together are like one soul. Because the verse says, like we'll see the Midrash, that they're all called when it says by Yaakov, Esav it says there's Shivim, there's different souls. And if I read you the Midrash, I think I've got it. Vayikra Rabba. Esav took his wives and his sons and his daughters and all the souls of his household. For Yaakov it says there were 70 souls. But it says 70 nefesh in the singular. And it says in all of the people, nefesh, it says, by Yaakov shivim nefesh. Right, they went to Yaakov shivim nefesh. By Esav it says, because they worshipped many gods and they were considered multiple. In other words, by the non-Jews, they're different individuals, each one individuals as they are, connect to God, worship it as human beings, as regular individuals. The Jewish people are not individuals. They are created as a national entity, which from that, again, there are Jews, individual Jews throughout history, but they're called, even when they're multiplicity of the Jews, they're called one nefesh. So this is because they all emanate from one root and one soul. Even if you see that each one is separate mireo, each one is separate. Each one of us sits in a different chair, we're all seemingly separate individuals. The separation is only on the physical level, on the bodies, in our land and property. But the soul is one. And we were like a tree that gives fruit, and even though you see the tops of the tree, maybe like the branches, like you see the top of the branches, there are many, many branches, but after you underneath though, internally or subterranean, whatever, they have a united root, right? One trunk. Oh, you don't go to the roots actually. To the trunk, they have one trunk that unifies them. They're all branches of one tree. So too the Jewish people are branches from this supernal, divine, lofty level of this divine. They're connected in their roots. Even though they're separate in this world, so to speak, physically, they are linked to, cleaving to the source. Like it says in Dvarim, they are all, the Jewish people are a Chilek Hashem, the portion of God. Just like if you see a person, an individual, that his limbs are, that some of his limbs are cut off. Even though if someone cuts off, God forbid, some of his limbs, then all of the limbs feel the pain. Because they're really one. There's a midrash that I started to read you, but it's more. It says Israel like a sheep. Why liken to sheep? Just as sheep, when you hit one on its head or some other body part, all of its body parts feel it. So it is with Israel. When one of them sins, and everyone feels it. Although there's total connection, this interconnection of the Jewish people, that the pain of one is the pain of others, of them all. And Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai gives a parable. People are on a boat. Everyone gets their boat, and I don't know, some fancy yacht. They all get a ride to go over the sea. And one of them took out a drill and started drilling in his room. Everyone hears the noise. They start running to the room. What's going on? They knock on his door. They see him drilling. They say, "What are you doing?" And the rabbi says, "Mach pat lacha," he says to them. "What do you care? This is my room. You see, room 253. I paid for it. This is my room. I'm drilling a hole. I want to look at the fish. I want to see the fish from my room." What do they tell him? Why does it bother us? If you make a hole in your... we all sink.
We're going to sink, yeah.
What are you sitting and doing? I'm drilling under my area. No, they said to him, but if the water will rise up and flood us all. No, we're all connected. It's not some separate thing. It's not some private thing. What do you care what I do? It doesn't affect you for good or for bad. No, we're all one ship. We're all one unit. There's an interconnection. Again, this is a structural reality. This isn't some moral teaching that one should care about the other. One should be concerned. Maybe even the opposite, jealousy. His success is my demise. The competition, capitalism, whatever. I want to succeed. The more I succeed, maybe the less he gets business, whatever. But no, his success is your success. We're one unit. We're one entity. Literally, not some. Again, it's nice to think that way. It's nice to care about the others. To care about this like you care about yourself. That is you. You're a part of a bigger unit. You have to get used to that. In the exile, we got used to thinking, and that's the tragedy of the exile, that we get used to thinking of ourselves as each one individually. Because on the external side, we are individual. But the truth is, the way with the makeup of the Jewish people is, again, it's one entity. It's not a parable. It's not a metaphor. In other words, that's the reality of Am Yisrael. Am Zu Yitzarti Liti, that is the parable. Nation, right? Yeshayahu 43. This nation have I created unto me. God created this national essence in order to bring good to the world, to bring blessing to the world. This is the unit that enables this bridging the gap between the finite and infinite, as we talked about, to receive the Torah, to bring this message, to bring light to all of the world, from Zion, Grat Torah, the word of God from Shalayim. That's the means that he created, to be this national essence that will bring holiness to all the world. The minimum unit that encompasses all of life is a nation, not holy individuals that are nice in their room and their monastery, but a nation that encompasses all of life, agriculture, finance, ministry, army, politics, and all of that is holy. All of that is driven by this inner soul of goodness, of holiness, of justice, of truth. And that's what will change the world. A nation that lives holiness in this world. Again, I don't have Orot. If you look at page Kuvdal in Orot, how God created it, close to Avraham Avinu, you're going to be a father of a nation that will change mankind, will uproot and elevate all of mankind to expose the unity of all of existence. There's one God in the world, meaning that all of the world is ultimately also branches of godliness in all of creation. But to reveal that, the conductor that was created, so to speak, this national essence of this divinely created soul of oneness that brings it and shows it and ultimately will unify all of mankind, and then they'll beat their swords into plowshares, Yeshayahu chapter 2, like I said, from Zion Grat Torah, and they'll beat their swords swords into plowshares, and lo yisagoy go. They were no longer will man lift up a nation lifting up a sword against each other. But to make that change, it's easy to write that in the wall of the United Nations, to copy that verse from Yeshayahu, from our prophet. But to change that and to write that in the walls of man, that takes a lot more. And that's what God created, this nation that will do so, right? The nations of the world will be blessed through you, it says to Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. The Ma'or V'Shemesh says more or less the same idea, maybe just to make it quicker. Source number 4, Chassidut, right, developed a lot about the loving of other Jews. So source number 4 from Menachem Chernobyl, one of the students of the Baal Shem Tov, and the Magidim, he writes, V'ahavta lecha kamocha. What does it mean? Perush, meaning, even though a person knows he has some negative traits, some people, most not, maybe some of you don't, but some of us have negative things. But you don't hate yourself. We overlook the bad, and we also hope that other people look at the good side of us, not just to see the bad. We have bad things, but we overlook that ourselves, and we try to emphasize, and we should work on it to get rid of that. But we don't hate ourselves because of that. Gamet chavero, so too your friend. Even though you see bad in your neighbor, don't hate him. Because also your neighbor has this part of God in him. It has a divine aspect. Even if you see bad in the neighbor, what about the evil, the bad things in him? Are we supposed to embrace the bad? No, you should hate the bad in him, and the holy part you should love. That's the famous chapter in the Tanya, chapter 32, Lev, heart. You have it here, but I don't want to read it now, it's too long, I don't have time. But you read chapter 32, that there he makes also this distinction that you should hate the evil, the bad, but what you love is the positive side, what to love, and that's what you're supposed to love and commanded to love. To see the good, that's what I said before, you have to scratch the surface. It's not on the visible side, so to speak. Rav Tversky, or an article I have many years ago. He says, Klal Yisrael is one huge neshama, Rav Avram Tversky. And we're distinct only as individuals, only by virtue of this huge neshama being housed in different physical bodies, like the Al-Shich wrote, right? There's one soul manifested in physical, so to speak, separate identity. We have two entities that are opposite in their effects. As neshamot, we are one, whereas in physical bodies, we are separate and distinct. Thus, to the extent that we emphasize and understand and vision, have that proper understanding, spiritual understanding, we emphasize in the Shema, we are one. To the extent that we cater to and indulge the physical side, then we're separate. So it depends where you're at. If your life is only the physical, that's the only dimension that you see, that you only care about, then we're all separate. There's room for hatred and jealousy. You take up, you're eating. We're in competition for the oxygen in the world. The more you're successful, the more everything is like competition and hate and all the negative traits. But the more you get to the level that your emphasis is on the spiritual side, the true side, the energy, the essential side of reality, of existence and the people, you see that you work and you recognize the neshama. Also the Shem Yishmuel writes this, but he was in English, so the Shem Yishmuel, Rav Sokotchev also. Depends where you're at, where your focus is, how you have the ability, like it says here, to see the inner side, the holy side, the true side. That's what we said before at the beginning. That takes effort. That takes malacha. To love on that level, it takes love. It takes a lot of work because, again, the physical, the 5 dimensions, the 5 senses that we have, pick up the external side. And there's room for hatred and jealousy. Also, the number 5, Rav Yaakov Yosef, is also the student of Baal Shem Tov. We see it underlined, source number 5. Ki klal Yisrael echadu. The nation of Israel is one. U'mishu soneh et chavero, soneh et atzmo. When you hate the other, you hate yourself. It's not something separate. Again, it's not some moral nice idea. This is the reality. Hating yourself is like hating a part of you. You just thought your you is me, this, 80, 100 kilo of flesh. But you, the real you, is your roots, and you're a branch of, you're a branch, a limb of this giant body. And therefore the oneness, unity, comes from the deeper emunah, like as before. It takes the work, like Rav Kook writes in Orot Yisrael. The love takes a lot of emunah to see beyond the surface. But here I want to bring you famous, should be famous, well, now it'll be famous. Number 8, source number 8, the Gemara, the Talmud Yerushalmi, brings a teaching how we can fulfill this commandment of loving others, or what it said here specifically referring to lo tikov v'lo titor, not to take revenge and not to bear a grudge. To take revenge is doing, you did to me, I'll do it back to you. Bearing a grudge is, I won't do to you what you did to me, but I still bear a grudge in my heart. Even that is forbidden. And we're human beings. Someone hits you, steals, does something to you bad, you want to get him back. Little kids, right? You did to me, I'll get you back. But we're human beings that have this feeling of revenge. Even if we don't do it, we're more advanced. We don't hit him back, but we remember what you did to him. I remember in my heart. How can we get rid of that? So the Gemara gives these two lines here, what you see on the bottom, towards number 8. This is Talmud Yerushalmi in Nedarim, chapter 9. It says there was a case, so to speak. Havai Mekata, he was cutting this flat meat. Umatach sakina lidoi, and sometimes that happens when you're cutting. You have a knife in your right hand, and you're cutting the meat and holding it with your left hand. Sometimes it slips, or you hammer a nail, and sometimes you hit. You've had cases in the emergency room
all the time.
All the time. He, for the right hand, hits the left hand.
Fingers are the most common things cut.
So he cuts his left hand. Tachzor v'timcha liyadei, will he now rise up and take revenge on his right hand? The left hand will now get back at his right hand and say, you did to me, ho, I'll show you. And he takes the hammer, and now hits the other hand. Why not? So look at the commentaries right on the left. You have the commentary, the Korban Aidan, the Talmud Yerushalmi. He was cutting a piece of meat. Again, he described it, and he slipped the knife, and he hit his head. Will it rise upon him? Will it dawn upon him? That his left hand, it should now take vengeance, or should avenge his right hand, because it hit him. Because with the left, so the left hand take on the revenge on the first hand that hit. Kena Davar. So too this case that we're talking about in the nation of Israel. Kevan shekol Yisrael guf achad, because all the Jews are one body. They're one body. Dinu, it only makes sense. Shelo yinkom michavero shehu kelokem migufo. It's logical. It only makes sense that one will not take revenge on the other part because it's if he's taking revenge on himself. If he cuts himself, now they both hurt. Now what did you help? Now he's in super pain. Unless the body's anesthetized, then, or cut into pieces, I don't know, whatever, then, if you want to take the metaphor, then the left hand says, okay, I can hit you, I don't feel your pain. If they're cut off, they're anesthetized, he doesn't feel the pain. But if it's a normal situation that life is flowing and they're one unity, then the left hand will not, another Jew cannot hit another Jew. It's hit him, like we said before, it's like as if he hates himself, he's hitting himself. The problem is, for 2,000 years in exile, like I said, we became, the neshama wasn't flowing. We didn't have this energizing, unifying force. And we felt like different limbs, and each one is separate. And, like what says in the Gemara on Brachot, page 8a, that God, when the temple destroyed Jews in exile, God only has his 4 cubits, right? The private domain, each one individual, you, Shabbat, Kashrut, your mitzvot. And that's the reality. That's the tragedy, but that's the reality. There isn't this unifying flow of life that each one is indeed feels and connects to this unifying body that we're part of. That's the amazing thing of the redemption, is the return to that national identity, that national feeling. It's willing to sacrifice your life for others. What we're living through today, the army, the soldiers that go in and willing to sacrifice for others without understanding the bigger philosophy maybe of what is salvation. They have this inner level. That's reach the point of history of the redemption process, that now this neshama is now returning to earth, and now the Jews have this collective feeling again. Not everyone, but most. I mean, the health is now returning in stages. Yeah.
We're always ideally supposed to look at it. Is the life slipping? It's never deliberate, even when it seems deliberate. Even when someone will deliberately, another member of Am Yisrael.
It doesn't matter if it's deliberate or not.
It's still,
if the left hand,
it's still going to hurt us, right?
Right. If you hit the other one back, then you're sicker than you were. What? I get back at him. He deserves it. He did it on purpose. So now I cut him, and now we're both bleeding.
Cutting out the cancer or road there.
Okay, you're right. The metaphor you have to take right. The metaphors you have to take right. A certain cancer to get rid of certain. But the structure, we're understanding here that we're talking about a structural reality. This is how it's built. Even halakha. what he mentioned before, Arivim said the Jews are responsible one for another. That's why the law there is in the Gemara Rosh Hashanah that if already one fulfilled the mitzvah, you heard Kiddush. You can now make another Kiddush for another Jew, make the blessing. Why? I already filled my exemption. How do you say? I'm exempt, I fulfilled my obligation. But no, the Ritva explains that as long as there's one Jew that hasn't done it, you're still obligated. Not that you're doing him a favor. I'll do it for you, I'll make Kiddush for you. You can't read Hebrew. No, you have an aspect of the obligation because the body hasn't yet fulfilled it. In other words, it's not for him. They're two separate people, and I did mine, and I'll help you, whatever. No. If hasn't done it yet, then you have a partial obligation upon you. That's the Ritva on Rosh Hashanah. But again, this is the reality. So much so there's a Gemara in. But maybe we'll see other sources. If you want to go to source number 12, the top of the third sheet. Says, this is in the Gemara Menachot. It says, let me think quick. Well, there's 4 species, right? We have on Sukkot 4 species in the lulav. 2 of them give fruits, and 2 of them don't give fruits. It says, those that give fruits need those that don't give fruits, and those that don't give fruit need those that do. Ve'ein adam yotzei, and you don't fulfill the obligation until you have all of them together as one. So too the Jewish people. They're not fulfilling their proper existence until they all live as one. Rashi explains that those that give fruits, the etrog and the tamarim, the yuzkukim, they all have to be unified as one. When they are fasting, they all have to be together as one, even including the tzaddikim and the rashayim, even the evil, like those that don't give fruits. In other words, you have to include all those Jews that don't give fruits. If you turn to, just quickly maybe, to go to source number 9, same idea, but in another context of the Gemara Kritut. It says that Rabbi Chassina says that every fast that doesn't have what Rashi brought down in Menachot is brought down in the Gemara here in Kritut, that every fast that doesn't have the sinners of Israel, doesn't include them. We have us, Anas, the Jews, our yeshiva, our friends, our holy group of our Chassidut, our only them. No, it has to have all the Jewish people, even the sinners of Israel is not considered a Tanit. We learn it out from the Chelbana, right? There's 11 spices in the Chelbana, in the Ktoret. In the Ktoret. Chelbana, I think it's frankincense in English, I don't know. It has a very bad smell. Reicha it's a bad smell. So who needs it? Who take 10 out of the 11? Why add this bad guy, this bad smelling spice? We want to have a good smell, and the Ktoret goes up to heaven to pray to. It has a big effect on unifying the world. And why are you bringing this bad smelling thing? He says, no, it's part of the Simanei Ktoret. So here we see that we need all of the different parts. So we said in the first one, don't give fruits. It just may be lack of positivity. But here it says even the bad have to be included. Why? If I could read you, that is the Meshech Chochmah, source number 11. But because again, the unit that receives godliness in this world is the nation. Like Tzibur, the word Tzibur, of course, used to mention, but is the Rashi Tevot. The Tzibur is like collective, a nation, right? Tzibur means tzaddikim, Beinonim, the mediocre, and the Rashayim, including the evil. That's part of it. Otherwise, you have a tzav, and then we talked about that. But the Tzibur includes all. Not that that's good. We don't want the Rashayim. They have free will. They're not supposed to use their free will improperly. They should do what is good. But the nation is not you, the good guys. There's parts of the body, as you might know, that are, let's say, less aesthetically, clean, and they have a tendency more to get dirty, to smell, whatever, different parts that we say the blessing. How do we go after the bathroom? That if we couldn't live an hour, if they closed up certain parts, we couldn't live without them. The body needs all the different parts. They should all work properly and healthy. But even if they don't, you can't just say, I don't need this part. The Meshech Chochmah, what it says here, is that not only do you include the chelbana, the bad smelling, the bad guys, He says they're only bad when taken alone. When you smell it alone, when you see this individual judged by his own merits, it's no good. He's no good. But when he's joined to the collective, you'd think, now it lowers the average. We all got 100, and we have this misfit, or I don't know, he gets 10 on the test, he lowers the average of the class. No, not only does it not lower the average, but you have to include him, but what can we do? We have to be friendly, keep him in the class. No, he actually adds to the good. The Chelbana adds the good smell to all the others. When you introduce, he alone is no good, but when he's his catalyst that causes to bring out the good smell even better than the good, he raises the average of the class. Paradoxically, so. That's how Am Yisrael is built. Am Yisrael that's the vehicle that it receives and expresses godliness in the world. And the love, again, is not the bad side of him, but the true side of him. Like the Maral says, the evil side, the bad side is momentary, is mikre, is circumstantial, whatever, is temporary, is not the real him. He's the opposite. He's acting against his true self. But what you love is the true self. And actually, by seeing the true self and loving it and caring for it and respecting him for what he really is, that actually activates the positive side of him and brings him back to tshuva and makes him come back to who he really is. As it says, I'll let you go to no, maybe just again, source number 13 is again the Midrash that says that the Jews here delineates the different four species. There's an etrog that the four species, right? They have good taste and good smell. That's like there's Jews that have Torah and have good deeds. It goes to all four. There's the types of Jews that have good deeds and no Torah. They have Torah and ironically have Torah and no good deeds. And there's those that have the no Torah, no good deeds, right? The Arava. And it says there, La'abdam, so what should God do? Who needs these bad guys? Who needs the guys with no taste and no smell? No Torah, no mitzvot, no good deed. Who needs them? Who wants them? Take the three, take the etrog and the He says, no, you need La'abdam, to get rid of them, to destroy them, Yifshar. But rather God says, Yuksharu kulam, they should all be united as one, Umechaprim ze'al zeh, and they atone one for the other. When they're united, there again, this unity, this harm, this flow of life to all, and ultimately that will bring them all to completion, perfection. But nevertheless, we need them all to be this receptacle of goodness, of godliness in the world. So much, so, again, the source number 15, quickly, the Mesechet Peah, chapter 1 and Halacha 1, it says, he brings down when David HaMelech, the generation of David were all holy, all righteous, but there was Dilturin, there was Lashon Hara, there was dissension between them. They're righteous, tzaddikim, but amongst them, whatever there is, like Rabbi Kiva, the students of Rabbi Kiva, that they didn't respect each other. There's tzaddikim sometimes that are lacking sometimes in certain aspects between each other. So here they had, and he say, they weren't united, to put it mildly. They were tzaddikim. They used to go to battle and fall. Skipping downwards, underline, the generation of Achav. They're full of idol worshippers. Individual, idol worshippers, that's it. God hates them. But because they didn't have Dalturim Benem, they were unified. And they would win. In other words, sometimes there's a guidance of God that doesn't go by the subjective level, the individual level of worthiness. Again, there's reward and punishment. You do bad, you do bad. There's good. There's individual accounting for. But there's also a level of guidance when God goes by the collective vehicle. When the Jews are one, and it said the other place in Midrash, source number 18, when the Jews, even they're worshipping idols, when there's peace between them, as if God, and there's no nation can how do you say, overcome them. No, there's a guidance of God when the nation is one, unified, then they are now this conduit of godliness. Time of Achav, idol worshipping, and extremely opposite of all of Torah, but nevertheless, when they were unified, that enabled them to be this receptacle of godliness and able to succeed in battle. The Ramchal elaborates on this in Dat Funot, in the book. He calls it Hanagata Yuchud. There's usually the Hanagata Mishpat, judgment. You get, again, good for good and bad for bad. There is reward and punishment. But there's another dimension. There's sometimes that God guides and judges the world, and by this, not by the individual worthiness, but by, so to speak, from his point of view, from the divine essence that of the nation of Israel, that the holiness where they really are. Like the moon is always facing the sun, or with the side that's facing the sun, the rabbis say, like we're like the moon. That the fanecha, that it's always lit, illuminated. It's always good. Like the Maral says, the sin is only the external side, the momentary side, the subjective side, but the objective, the true side, the connected to God is absolute eternal connection. And sometimes he guides by that. Like we learned in Yechezkel 36, the final redemption, it says, I won't look at your sins, even though you're sinning and you're not worthy, not for your sakes do I do this, but I'm bringing you back for my name's sake. That's what it means here, the my name's sake, what the Ramchal calls the Hanagata Yichud, the guidance of to manifest his oneness in the world. The nation of Israel is that objective vehicle. He's bringing us back for his name, to manifest that name of God, that good that the world is waiting for, that God wishes to bestow. I waited for you long enough for you, we're worthy of it, or your free will level, 100 years, 500 years, 2,000 years. Now I'm bringing you back in spite of the fact that you're not worthy and not deserving, but for my name's sake. And that's also here with the time of David, when they weren't united, then they didn't receive this divine flow of energy. It's like you have a faucet. I mentioned the joke about if you have a faucet without the pipes behind it. When they're broken and the water doesn't come through. Here, when the Jews are together, then you have this flow. And the time of Achav, ironically, and be victorious. And there are Shla Kadosh. Now we have the other Shla Kadosh at the bottom of that sheet. Source number 16. Also talks about the Jews are one, the Knesset Yisrael, the source, and we have to be unified below, just like we are above. And the disunity beneath, and God forbid, causes this separation above. It causes that as if godliness cannot now flow and be revealed. Not we change God, but the godliness, the flow, the energy cannot come to the world when this, how do you say, the glass is broken and fractured, the vehicle, the vessel. And that causes as if the diminishing of God's name in the world. There's other sources here about those that criticize the Jewish people, even though they were evil and rotten and doing bad things. In the source number 17, Moshe Rabbeinu even, in Yeshayahu, says, I'm sitting among people that are in, and they were bad. They were right, but he says he goes burn the, hit the mouth that speaks these bad things about my children. In Eliyahu Hanavi, that say bad things about my children. At the end, the last line there in that midrash, number 17, God does not want he that says bad things about his children. In Path of the Just, chapter 19, also about who are the true leaders of Israel, the true shepherds of Israel that God loves. Though that say good things about his children, they see the good and judge them for the benefit, not the benefit of the doubt. They see the good in them. They bring out the good. There's bad things. We're not denying that there's bad things and negative things. But you see, like the father doesn't like. I think Rosh says about the king that sends his son away, and someone goes and gives the son food or whatever, feeds him, and the king gives a reward to that person. But what you punish the son? No, but the guy who's helping the son and helping him, because he loves his son, even though he punishes him, but he still has that connection, and is the true leaders of Israel. The Path of the Just says the Ramchal. The Yortzeit was 2 days ago, the 26th of the VR, the Ramchal, Moshe Chaim Mutzato. They said the true leaders, the true shepherds, are those who know benefit. They see the good and bring out the good and help to work in the good, and not just to focus on the bad. And say, look how bad they are. Look how he thinks they find praise in the honor of the father. Look how rotten. You're right. Your children, I caught them. They started stealing. They were rotten. They think they'll find favor in the eyes of telling God how how righteous I am. And look how bad the other guys are doing. No, God doesn't love those. He loves those who love His children and see the good in them and bring that out. And like I said, there's other sources here how they're forbidden to hate the Jews, even the evil. And the second temple that was destroyed. The Tziv of Volozhin that you mentioned before on the right, source number 21, the last, how the second temple, right, we know it was destroyed because of baseless hatred, and they said they were righteous people, and they learned Torah. The Midrash says they learned the Torah. In Gemilut Chasadim, they were charity, they were kind, generous people, but they saw other people, the Jews, that didn't serve God the way they felt you're supposed to serve God, and they thought that they justified in killing them and hurting them. And he says, God doesn't hate, God doesn't can't stand tzaddikim, righteous people like that. There's other things to add here, there's so much more, but the understanding is the more we have to learn and understand what there is to love, the divine side of the Jewish people, the true side, the true essence, not the external dress that can come and go, but the true essence, and to love that, and actually the loving it, changes, like you look at electrons, and it changes the position, like quantum mechanics, whatever. When you seeing that, loving that inner core, that actually enhances that inner core to become more what he really is, to bring out that essence. And that's our obligation, that's the message of Shavuot, that the unity that received the Torah, but also the unity that is what enables us to continue to fulfill the God's mission in the world, to bring that good to the world. B'ezrat Hashem. Thanks.